Okay, I've got another review. It's similar to something I've done in the past. I've done a phone review in the past, and I've got some new phones, or a new phone. So previously, I was on the OnePlus 12R, which is this one right here. Before that, I was on the iPhone 13 Pro, and I've decided to switch back to Apple. I've got the 16 Pro here that I'm looking at. What kind of went into going back to Apple? So in my previous phone video I made, I had, like I said, the 13 Pro, and I was just kind of ready to try Android again. I'd had Androids in the past. This is not my first Android. I had the Google Pixel 8 right before this. That was actually the worst phone I have ever used. Easily the worst phone I've ever used. And so I tried to get rid of that as quick as I could. I was able to get the OnePlus. I've used the OnePlus for over a year. And there was just a couple things. Now, was I having like just terrible issues with the OnePlus? No, not really. The biggest issue I had was something that isn't really this phone's fault, and what I mean by that is that the camera sucks. Okay, the camera, I went into it knowing it wouldn't be good. This is the budget version. It's the 12R. It's been replaced since by the OnePlus 13R. Pretty similar. Let me see if I can actually get it on OnePlus. Yeah. The OnePlus 13R, I would recommend. Keep in mind, I've never used it, but you get better everything, and the flat slab design with the flat screen. That's a big deal to a lot of people. That was not a big deal to me with this one, because the edges, the curved edges, it's a mild curve. It's nothing too crazy. And so it really didn't affect usability, if that makes sense. It wasn't a problem. The camera, it's on the rear, it's unreliable at best. And what I mean by that is it is possible to get a good photo out of it. 100%. I've taken a handful of photos that I would, that I would consider to be good photos. However, if you are low light, it's dead in the water, it won't work. I mean, and what I mean by that is it's pretty shit quality. Like, you're not gonna be able to take good photos in low light. Video, shit, unusable for what I would consider most people's kind of standard. Front-facing camera, absolutely dog shit. I mean, fucking terrible. If you could see in here, yeah, I mean, I'm not like in a good-looking state anyways. By the way, I'm filming this on the DJI Osmo Action 4, I believe. I just got it in. I had previously made videos by kind of setting a tripod with an iPhone behind me, and it's just not ideal. It was very limiting in terms of what type of videos and whatnot. But enough on that. The camera on here, I do like the shortcut in terms of double tapping the power button. You do get the camera control button here, which is sick. I mean, it's cool. The camera, in terms of using the zoom and stuff, it's a little gimmicky. I wouldn't really be using that a whole lot, especially with the other capacitive controls in terms of going into these other options and whatnot. If I were changing this type of stuff, I would be doing it probably on the phone, if that makes sense. But to have the option there isn't something I'm upset at, and just having a dedicated shutter button and a dedicated camera launch button is pretty sick. So I think overall the camera control is good. I hope, and I'm pretty sure it will be on the following iPhone models, but I hope it stays around for at least a while. Another difference here on OnePlus, everyone loves how OnePlus has the alert slider, similar to how older iPhones do. I like the alert slider on here. I was glad to see it on the OnePlus 12R. Here you have the action button. I prefer the action button. I wasn't really crazy about the action button going into it. I figured I'd probably use it on for the silent and that function anyways. But I've found that I can just have that here in the control center, and then if I'm needing a physical button, like I'm fumbling around with the phone, more than likely I would be using the flashlight, and so I've decided to change that there. Here currently, it's easy to turn the flashlight on, but it is not a physical control. It is, you do have to turn the screen on. But nonetheless, it's fine. The flashlight I'll touch on, and I do have, these aren't all of them, I have them laying everywhere, but I have some sick flashlights. And so I can tell you that this flashlight's really good for a phone. It's actually the best phone flashlight I've ever used. Gets pretty dim, super dim, which is important. Fairly bright enough. And you can actually see the beam pattern change. I wouldn't call this gimmicky because it works. It's pretty cool. I was pretty surprised with the flashlight, having it on the dynamic island. Pretty cool. We can start there. These both have similar dynamic island functions. Let's make sure my volume's down. Yeah, if we were to play songs from, this is just Apple Music. Apple Music has been flawless on Android, just as good as the iPhone, I'll say. Same kind of deal, if you can see the dynamic islands on both. This is obviously a copy of Apple. I don't care if it's a good feature. I don't care who uses it. I think it's a win if there's a good feature that's introduced and then it's adopted at a larger scale by other companies. I think that's a positive. But you do get an extra layer of control. So here opens, whereas if you tap on it here, you do get like the quick media controls. One more tap brings you into the app. If anything, I prefer that on the Android. However, you get the same thing, like instead of tapping there, you just swipe and it's right there. So it's not really a big deal, but I do think that's pretty cool. Another one that I use is the stopwatch is super sick. I'll be doing like plyometric stuff in the gym where I'm holding a position, and to have the stopwatch there, if I wanted to change a song during the middle of doing that or whatnot, try and distract myself for a second, I always have the time. I'm a big fan of it. One thing I'll say is the dynamic island definitely is larger than the camera cutout here. That has been a little bit annoying in terms of looking at like YouTube videos. We'll see if we can find something. This is a sick Raptor R. If you're looking at vertical content, I don't really think it's an issue. It's pretty much a non-factor. It doesn't really bother me, at least. Okay, let's see. Xiaomi, the Su 7, the Super Ultra 7. This car is sick. If they brought this to the US, it would be a market disruptor for sure. Of course, we always got the ads. But zoom to fill, it's a distraction, I would say. I have found myself kind of looking at YouTube videos without the zoom to fill, where typically on the OnePlus I was doing the zoom to fill. If you were doing podcast watching or anything, it's probably not going to be an issue. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The trade-off for it is you get Face ID, which it's huge. Face unlock on this guy is going to be so much better than the OnePlus. The OnePlus is just the camera based, and it's not based on a good camera, as we've showed. But the fingerprint sensor is pretty slick. I do miss the fingerprint sensor. That's easy. Do it again. Phone's laying down. Oh yeah, over here, phone's laying down. It's, you're typing in. It's definitely a disadvantage there. Battery life has been the biggest surprise to me. I was expecting as good or better battery life with the 16 Pro Max, better than the OnePlus 12R, but it's far exceeded my expectations. This battery life is insane. This is the best battery life probably on any phone in the market. Maybe not like maybe there's some ROG thing or some type of phone like that. But outside of that, this battery is way better than anything I've ever used before. Way, way better than the 13 Pro. Way better than the OnePlus 12, which this has really good battery life. Battery life here has been solid the whole year. Battery life, I'd say, is a strong suit of this phone. However, this is a whole nother level. Charging speed. Here you got ultra fast charging, and that has been a little bit of an adjustment, whereas with this guy, you plug it in for 10 minutes, that's it for the day. This guy is going to be average charging speed at best, probably worse than average realistically, but it is average in the sense that the average person owns an iPhone. So nothing special with the charging speed there. I'm fine with it just because how good the battery was. If these batteries were more comparable in battery life, then the battery overall as a segment would be better over here. But the extra life you get over on the iPhone in exchange for the slower charging speed, I think is a fair trade. It's a trade I believe most people would be willing to make, just because you probably can find 45 minutes throughout your day where this can be plugged in, especially if you're a normal person and sleep. Then the charging speed at that point's a non-factor, just because I don't know what you would be doing all day to kill the battery here. That would be pretty intense. You get the MagSafe and wireless charging. I do use wireless charging. I do have now this is an old Mophie charging pad here, so I believe it's probably 7.5 watts. I don't care. This is when I'm playing on the computer, just set my phone there, get a little extra battery life, as well as I primarily use it with the AirPods. Wireless charging for me doesn't seem to be as big of a factor as it is for other people. I don't really care. I think once we're at a point where the wireless charging speeds are comparable to the cable charging speeds, it would be more of a factor. MagSafe, obviously MagSafe here, no MagSafe here. I don't use it personally. That's another one that people live by, people swear by. I would be open to trying some type of MagSafe products. I've thought about maybe the Puck, but I'd kind of just be buying it to try it as opposed to really having a need for it. That makes sense. I know people do the MagSafe wallets. That seems like a little bit of a security risk in terms of your wallet can fall off the back of your phone, where if you lose your phone, you're losing your phone and your wallet. I don't know. Maybe that's just something with me. The wallet thing doesn't really interest me. Maybe some type of car MagSafe mount. That would probably be the thing I would use MagSafe for, some type of car mount. That would be cool. But it's just there. Be aware. You do have MagSafe here. With this, in theory, you could get some type of magnetic case, but I'm not sure whether or not that's available. Accessory support over here on the OnePlus, I'd say, is very limited. But if you rock cases like either this or this is just a kind of a standard clear case, if you're basic with the cases, then you can get something over here on OnePlus that'll suit you fine. The screen protectors, it's annoying you can't do the glass ones that I'm used to using because of the curve. Over here, no problem. The accessory support across the board is going to be better. But the camera, I would say, is definitely the biggest difference. CPU speed, overall speed of the device. Obviously, 16 Pro Max, probably the fastest phone you can buy right now. It's ridiculously fast. I don't know how to showcase it. I mean, open up settings, you're in there. Open up calendar, you're in there. We can get, I'm trying not to open something personal. Weather, everything is super, super fluid. Camera button, swapping between apps. It's just as fast as it can get, really. I know they get incrementally faster, and the 17 Pro will be a little faster, but it's at the point where even the speed between the 16 Pro and the previous 13 Pro was not night and day. With the iPhones in the past going up to, let's say, through the 14 Pro Max series, it's always been where you have to make some legitimate compromises, especially if we said the 13 series, that's even a bigger compromise. Now, I don't think it's really a compromise in terms of feature set to buy an iPhone. What I mean by that is, 120 hertz, you've got that. The 16 base models, them not having 120 for that price is ridiculous. I've heard that the rumors are kind of pointing towards the 17 series adopting ProMotion across the board. I believe it's overdue, but if that's the case going forward, I don't know that I'll necessarily be buying the Pro iPhones. I mean, I probably will, just because I'm interested in technology and phones and typically like to get the best one. But that's really the big deal for me. If the 16 had 120 hertz, that's the one I probably would have went with. Another thing, you have always on displays on the iPhone now. Not only do you have always on displays, but I think it's better than either the Pixel or the OnePlus, in the sense of really customization. I'd say you have more customization. And what I mean by that is the widgets here. You can edit the clock here. You can edit where it says Sunday, April 6th. You can make that have different things. And you can have it where it's just like a super dark version of your wallpaper. Most people I see out and about, they don't have the wallpaper feature on with the always on display, but I think it actually looks pretty perfect with this specific wallpaper. So I've elected to leave that on. Custom icons, not necessarily the icons themselves, but the ability to make them a little bigger, remove the text, do the colors kind of however you want. That's all stock here. Android does have the advantage of third-party icon packs. However, in my opinion, and this is just personal to me, I believe that the iOS stock app icons look better than anything you could probably get even third-party on Android. I've seen some cool ones. I've bought a few of them, and when you use them, they're cool, but it's not as seamless. Like, every app will be themed. Whereas with this one, like HEB, I don't think it's themed. It's going to be a little bit more inconsistent. One thing I like also is when I have it set to the colors like this, all of my widgets, everything's that same kind of color scheme. It's just more polished, more consistent across the entire OS. This is a tortoise in the hare situation where all these customization features Android has definitely had for a decade plus. However, iOS's, Apple's implementation, I find to be maybe superior in the sense of if you're achieving a more aesthetic look, which I believe this is more aesthetic than this, and you can get the Androids to look crazy. I don't really need too much. I just kind of like matching colors and minimal icons, as you can tell from both of these layouts. What else? The speed on the OnePlus 12R, I would say, will still get you by. It's still fast. It's actually pretty dang fast, really. However, micro stutter, you're going to experience it here way more than the iPhone. And third-party apps are going to be way better on the iPhone. The golden example has always been Snapchat. That is still the case. If you have a OnePlus 12R, I wouldn't really be giving my Snapchat out to people because your front-facing camera is unusable on the 12R. It's terrible. I mean, you cannot Snapchat. Like if you're trying to impress a woman or something, you cannot use this phone and Snapchat. It's going to do you dirty. You will look like shit. The resolution is super low. The colors are terrible. It'll be like a weird aspect ratio on people's phones. It's not ideal for stuff like that. I don't really use other social media apps like, let's say, Instagram, Twitter, or it's X now, Facebook. My understanding is that the experience on those apps with Android is a lot closer to the iOS experience, but it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be as good. There's going to be little things, whether it's visual differences, whether it's scrolling differences in terms of micro stutter, whatever it is. You just get a more polished experience here. It's a more reliable phone in the sense that you can trust it to respond to your inputs more accurately. If that makes sense, you just feel more confident using this phone and more confident that it will do what you're wanting it to. The camera is obviously more reliable. Here you have what I would consider to be, I guess there's 3 lenses, and then one on the front. I would say only one of those is usable. The main shooter on the back, that's the only one of usable quality. On here, all 4 of your cameras are beyond usable. All 4 are good. The main shooter and for sure is at least excellent. It's probably there's always going to be an Android phone that in a blind ABX test you can say looks better than the iPhone, but in terms of the overall camera experience from all the lenses, front and back, video, low light versus ideal conditions, I don't think there's anything that is a better total package than the iPhone, and it's just very reliable to use. You get super good results in pretty much any condition. In terms of, let's say, a utilitarian function of the camera, meaning, hey, send me a picture of the top of this document, or send me let me see the damage on the door frame, something like that, like a truly utilitarian purpose. I do believe the main shooter over here is good enough to get you by. Beyond that, in terms of any type of artistic photography, social media posting, stuff like that, this is not going to be up to snuff. And what I mean by that is, if you look at a old iPhone, like even a 13, let's see what you can buy it on eBay, iPhone 13. $200, or even this one, the SE 3rd Gen. Any of these are going to have way better camera, overall camera packages than the OnePlus, and for that reason, it's kind of outdated. It just depends. If you're a camera person and you like everything else about this, you do have the option to spend a little more. So right here, and this is actually more expensive than the 12R was. I believe the 12R started at $499. However, this 12 gig 256 was the 600. So you kind of just don't have a cheaper option, but in terms of the spec package, the price is in line with last year's. You step up here to $899, and this guy looks sick. Now that I'm looking at it, I really haven't checked out the 13 too much. I would go with the black. The finish on this looks way better. This looks good too, kind of the faux leather, but I'm not sure that's for me. But if you're a camera guy and you want Android, you can step up to the regular models, spend a little more. However, it's still not going to be the iPhone 16 Pro Max camera setup. I don't know. If you could get by with either one, like iOS versus Android really isn't too important to you, I would say go with the Android in terms of being able to save some money. At this point, if you're buying a $1,000 OnePlus 13, I don't know if I'd spend $1,000 on it. I would probably go to the iPhone for that money. Not to discredit this, I'm sure it's fine. But I don't know. I haven't used it. IR blaster. You do get the IR blaster here. That's a super cool feature. I use it on my TVs. I got my living room TV ready to go on the home screen. That's a huge one. I'm not really in a TV watching phase right now, so I'm not missing it yet, but I anticipate that I will in the future. Overall, I would just say that the iPhone is going to be a better phone for most people. I think that's pretty safe, fair thing to say in terms of software updates, software support. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. You can talk about Pixel's 8 years or Samsung's 4 years or 5 years or whatever it is now. And I think this one's actually 4 years, but it's not the same. You get brand new updates. Everyone gets them at the same time. You know when it's coming. It's just better. App updates. I don't know. I didn't really have issues with outdated apps to my knowledge. I'm sure I'm behind on certain apps, but because I wasn't also using them on the iPhone, I didn't know. But overall, if you're not a power user and you just need something reliable, consistent, I would go with the iPhone. This is fine. I mean, the fact that you have USB-C here was really kind of what allowed me to really make the switch. If we were still on Lightning with the iPhones, I really don't think I'd have this. Everything's USB-C, everything. I mean, my keyboard here, audio equipment, speakers. I mean, your freaking razor, your electric razor at this point is USB-C. Your fucking vape is, for people who vape, I don't. But those are USB-C. And if this was Lightning, I don't think I would have gotten it. There's some speculation, quote unquote speculation. Everyone kind of knows the EU, their compatibility guidelines forced Apple to do this, but Apple, you know, they got to take their approach of, oh, we have a new port, right? Fully water resistant, everything over here. A lot of people say that this is also fully water resistant, but OnePlus is able to kind of skirt around paying for the actual rating while still employing the water-resistant gaskets, which doesn't bother me. I've not submerged this. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say I've gotten it at least wet at some point. I'm not going to submerge it because there's no recourse if something were to happen. It's not marketed as a water-resistant phone. Someone else can test that claim. I don't have enough money to be throwing these things down through torture tests or anything. The build quality on this is actually pretty good for the price. You get the metal rails. Pretty sure it's a glass back. I mean, 90% sure it's a glass back, glass front. Over here, the build quality is definitely better, but it's not like, holy shit, what is this piece of crap? You got the titanium, which is cool. It's cool, but I don't know that it really like does anything. I mean, I understand that it's lighter. I don't have an issue with the weight of either of them. If anything, the OnePlus is slightly more ergonomic just due to the fact that it's a little skinnier, I believe. I mean, there's cases on here. I don't know. I guess it's about the same size. If I had to pick one for ergonomics, I would say the OnePlus 12R is a little more ergonomic, but I don't have an issue with this one. I don't have massive hands or anything, and the 16 Pro really hasn't been an issue to me. I had the 13 Pro in the past, and going from the 13 Pro at, what was it, 6.1, 6.2 inch to something like this, which I believe is 16 or 6.7, I couldn't go back to like the 16 Pro. I had to get the Pro Max. I prefer the bigger screen 100%. Is it heavy? It's heavier than the OnePlus. From what I can tell holding them. I mean, maybe I'm off on that. I don't know. I don't know. They're comparable, at least. I don't know. But their weight's not an issue on either one. This actually, I don't know. Maybe this is lighter. I don't know. I'd say No, yeah, it's too close for me to tell. Weight's fine on both. Overall, yep, just back on the iPhone. Everything kind of works a little better. A big deal is iMessage. That's not something that's necessarily specific to the 16 Pro Max. It's just a iOS feature. If you are in America, one thing that I will say, you are an inconvenience to other people when you use the Android. Like it or not, you can say that's not my problem, but it is the case. People are trying to text you. If someone's trying to send you a photo, you can actually get a photo in decent quality nowadays from iOS to Android. Video, you can't send video. That's the shitty part. You cannot send high quality video between iPhone and Android, and more than likely, if you're communicating with someone else, it's a good chance that they have an iPhone. And it's just it's one of those things where you kind of need iMessage. If you don't feel like you do, then maybe you don't. I've really enjoyed being back on iMessage. Video call. You don't have a good substitute here, which sucks. FaceTime. The fact that there's not some just native Android video chat. And maybe there is, and I don't know about it. And if that's the case, my point still stands because no one uses that feature if it's in there. Obviously, you have the continuity between using this with an iPad, which is great. The thing is that level of continuity between, let's say, your OnePlus and your OnePlus Tab, or your Samsung and your Samsung Galaxy Tab, that is... it's not going to be the same level of seamlessness or anything. AirDrop is huge. A lot of the stuff that I've found to really enjoy about being back on iOS is stuff that's iOS features, not necessarily 16 Pro Max features. What else is new with the 16 Pro Max? I don't know. The screen is sick. It's just badass. Probably, best looking display. This screen, badass, sick. Looks great. The screen on the other models, the more expensive ones, are even better, but this one's fine. I never had an issue. I never felt like I was using a lower quality display, honestly. You do get multiple resolutions. Let's see, screen resolution. I do have it on the higher one. I've cycled between both of them. There is a slight difference in quality. You honestly can't... Oh, there it goes. You honestly cannot tell that big of a difference, but there is a difference. Being it, you can tell, but daily use, you can't really tell, I would say. But either way, this screen is going to be better. Everything just works a little better. You've heard Apple people say that for the past 15 years, coming up on 20 years. The reason that you continue to hear that is because, in all honesty, it is true. You don't really run into issues with these. I've had iPhones starting with like the 4S, I believe, all the way through now. Never an issue. I've not really had an issue with this OnePlus 12R. With the Google Pixel 8, it was nothing but issues. I had a Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, which that's beyond outdated. That's not even in the conversation, but that had a bunch of issues. It's just kind of more of a mixed bag with the Android phones. Most people don't really have major issues, but a lot of the times if you start experiencing an issue on the Android, depending on what it is, there may not be a fix. Like, shit just happens on those, if that makes sense. Like, things just fuck up with them. It's just not as confidence inspiring when you use it, regardless of, even if you had an S25 Ultra. It's not the same. It's just not. I actually would not recommend you spend that much on a Galaxy Ultra. Get something cheaper. At that point, when you're paying that much for the S25, I don't know. I would go iPhone. At that kind of price bracket. The Androids, let's say $400 to $700. I think that's the sweet spot for them right now. The Nothing 3A, that's even or I think it's $379. Let's check before I'm just rattling off. Nothing.tech, I believe. No, that's not it. .tech.us. I think I spelled nothing wrong at first. Jesus Christ, who knows? us.nothing.tech. I was almost there. Let's see what these go for. 3A versus 3A Pro. I think it's just a camera difference. Yeah, starts at $379. 3A Pro, $459. These look sick. If I were to get another Android, which I will at some point, I believe I'll probably either stick with OnePlus or try something a little off the wall like the Nothing. They're cool. They do have Android-y features. The IR blaster I would consider to be the biggest Android-y feature, but there's all sorts of other little things that honestly are not coming to mind that I'm sure are there. You know, little things that this can do that can't. The Venn diagram. Let's go. Okay, this is gonna be rough, guys. I would say you're about here. Imagine those are circles. What I mean by this is these things are mostly similar nowadays between Android and iOS. We'll go Android I. They're mostly similar, mostly the same. This stuff on the fringe over here versus the stuff on the fringe over here, the differences, I think the iPhone wins. Let's go through it. iMessage, AirDrop, those two alone, that surpasses anything that the Android phone has that the iPhone doesn't, and unless there's something I'm not thinking of. Charging speed, which is specific to this device, not necessarily the Android in general. However, if you kind of take Samsung and Google out of the equation, every Android phone does have super fast charging speed for the most part. It's a big one. It is cool. It is cool. I will miss that. Android Auto versus Apple CarPlay. I prefer CarPlay. I know a lot of people actually prefer Android Auto. I would say that there's not really a huge difference. I just like the Apple one a little better. I don't know why. I prefer Apple Maps. Don't get too scared. I know a lot of people don't like Apple Maps. I have been using it for years. I have never had a issue with Apple Maps. I believe I would probably be in the minority because I feel like most people have something that's happened. I prefer Apple Maps. Google Maps is fine. Whatever. As far as the assistants, I've always felt Siri was better. However, this new Siri, the Apple Intelligence, it's fucking rough. It's rough. I've asked Siri a few things and it's been a shit show. Google Assistant has never impressed me. The one thing I will say about the Google Assistant is that I feel like you can maybe get better web result type stuff, but in terms of editing, like telling it to change a setting within the system, not very good. This, telling it to change a setting within the system, not great, but better. So it depends on what you use them for. I feel like most people use their assistant, hey, text mom, I'll be at the house later. Something like that. It's fine. It's the same. The stock apps, what I mean is the settings app, the photos app, the stock messenger, stuff like that. It's all better over here, which is a big deal because the reason a stock app is included stock with the phone is because you're pretty much guaranteed to be using it. For example, the phone app. Either one of those, Android or iPhone, is fine. The texting is the hugest difference. iMessage versus SMS/RCS. I've found that the RCS doesn't always work. Things don't always send over RCS. when I have in conversations where it's even with me and one of my buddies who does rock, he actually rocks the same OnePlus 12R. Our conversation when we were texting throughout the year would be switching from SMS to RCS. Why? I don't know. I have a good buddy with a Samsung Galaxy. Same situation. Some things would just be sent in SMS. Some things would be sent in RCS. I don't know why. It really isn't an inconvenience unless you're trying to send files or photos. And I don't know that I really sent a photo and it went through RCS, or I mean went through SMS as opposed to RCS between iPhone, or between two Androids. I think it was always fine. But going from me trying to send a photo through RCS to an iPhone, I had some issues there. Video, you can't really send the video. Maybe there's a way to do it. I've just always had issues with it. It never just worked the way that it always just works on the iPhone. I don't know. These devices, from my shitty Venn diagram, are more similar than ever. However, once again, the things that this does that the Android doesn't, I feel are far more important. Overall, it's a better phone to me. Overall, there's, the one composite score that you could assign to an iPhone will be better, especially better than the OnePlus 12R, but even another flagship. I think Android is more suited to these budget devices. A lot of the things that didn't bother me about this were to do with the price. I mean, hey, it's a $400 phone. It's, that's out the window with those more expensive phones. And then a lot of the issues that you would experience here, you would also experience at that higher price point. It's been a good experience. I would use this phone if I had to. I'd use it again. If I were to buy another Android, like I said, it probably would be a OnePlus, unless it was like a nothing or something else. It would be either a nothing phone or a Chinese phone like OnePlus. I find those to be kind of the best in terms of the overall feature set. I don't care and have never really cared for the Samsung Galaxies. It is what it is. Some people love the Galaxies. It's just not for me. But I don't know. If you guys have any specific questions, if you have an Android phone and are wondering about something on Apple, I'll be able to tell you, more than likely. So just leave it in the comments. Any video suggestions, anything like that, I'm open to. If, I've made audio reviews, gun reviews. If you guys want to see anything in particular, anybody who wants to, has a question about something, let me know. Thank you, and peace out.